Hello, my name is Flonna Shepherd. I'm a performer and I make videos on everything to do with this crazy industry. So today I thought I would answer a few questions that I've gotten from cruise ship life, because if you haven't seen it already, I've made a full series documenting everything that came along with working as a dancer on board a cruise ship. I'll leave a link to that up here and you can just go and watch that whenever you feel. So I've just had like a few questions come in because I did like an Instagram live a few weeks ago, so I thought I would just go ahead and answer them. So Shanna Marex asked, what do you think is the key for being a cruise ship dancer? What do they look for? I think as a cruise ship dancer they literally look for everything, all shapes, sizes, heights, everything, hair colour, hair lengths. Another girl asked me on Instagram, is it okay for her hair to be short? Yeah, it's absolutely okay for your hair to be like any style, colour, whatever. I think the only thing is, if maybe you have like pink hair, they might be like, can you go to like a natural colour, as in like blonde, black hair, brunette, whatever it is. But in general, like the hair doesn't matter. You're going to be wearing wigs, you're going to be wearing hair pieces, you're not really going to be showing your hair that often, and when you are showing your hair it's going to be in like a uniformed hairstyle, so the length of your hair won't necessarily matter, and if it needs to be longer you can put in extensions or you'll be wearing a wig. So literally like whatever hairstyle you have does not matter. So I have a question come in from Jack Gibson saying, what is the rehearsal process like how long do you rehearse for? So it depends on each company again, but for us it was 1 month and we learned a new show every week, so it was 4 shows we learned over 1 month. So I've had a good few questions about what the audition process was like, and it's pretty like long subject, so I made a different video, so do go check out that video if you want to know what the audition process is like. I'll leave a link in the description below. How's the relation with other workers? So yeah, the relationship with other workers when you are working and living together obviously is challenging. There's no other way to put that really. Like if you're working and living and always with the same people, obviously there's going to be some conflict, or like there's going to be conflict of personalities or whatever, but it's like you don't necessarily always have to be with the same people. You can always get off the ship and go and do your own thing. I think the main thing is just being civil with everyone, just like knowing that, okay, you don't need to be best friends with everyone, but there's a big difference between being best friends with someone and then showing like a serious lack of like disrespect to people. So just be respectful. Like, you know, a certain person might not be your cup of tea, might not be who you want to be around all the time, but if you have to work with them, you have to work with them. Like that's just life in general. So then the fact that you obviously live and eat and work together all the time is like another layer on top of that. And like you need to remember that there's like loads of other crew members on board as well, so like you don't need to stick to your cast or whoever's in your cast. As soon as rehearsals and setup is finished on the cruise ship, you are free to hang out and be friends with whoever you want, whoever you get on with. You're not obviously stuck to who is in your cast. So Janelle Stockwell asks, what styles of dance are the shows? Also hidden expenses that you need to pay for. That's a really good question. Hidden expenses. Okay, so I think there's STCW that you have to pay for and do, and that's about, I think I paid about like 700 and something quid for that. When you start rehearsals you don't get paid until like the month after, if that makes sense. So your whole contract, you're getting paid the month after you work that month, which makes sense. Like you work the month, you get paid for that month the next month. It's worthwhile knowing that and just reminding yourself of that, and like making sure that you have got some money in the bank for rehearsals. Other than that, I can't really think of anything. Like obviously you need to bring on board your own makeup. Obviously you are providing your own makeup for the whole contract, so you need to provide that. So that's obviously like, depending on what kind of makeup you wear, that could be really expensive or it could be kind of okay. So how often do we do the shows and like our daily schedule? I have done videos on this, like literally taking my camera along with me for a full day of work, so if you haven't seen them, do check them out. More or less, like you're not really going to have duties in the morning, early in the morning. I know once a cruise we did a fashion show that was about, started at like 10:30, we had to be there at like 10:15, so like even that's not too early. Then we didn't really have any other duties. We only really had 2 duties on board, which was fashion show and photos, and we were really lucky because they were paid in addition to our actual wage, so we got a bit of extra money for doing those duties. So they were on the first day we did embarkation photos, but that was on a rota, like a schedule, like you wouldn't do that every single cruise. We did 4 and 5 day cruises, so we did literally 2 or 3 shows a day. I personally would have like one cruise where I would work every day, and then one cruise where I wouldn't work for one day, just with the way the shows fell on each day. So basically I was one of the magic show girls, and we had a rotating of two, like basically kind of like 2 casts for the magic show. 2 girls one cruise, 2 girls another cruise. So basically I got 1 day off every 8 days or 1 day off every 10 days, depending on if it was a 4 or 5 day cruise, or if it was a 4 day cruise, then a 5 day cruise, maybe 1 day off every 7 days, 1 day off every 9 days. I don't know, you do the maths, but basically I kind of got 1 day off every second cruise, and that was just the way the cookie crumbled. Like, not every girl had to do the magic show, but I just had to accept it and was like, cool, get on with it. And I didn't get any extra money, I was not paid additionally for that. So another question that's come in is about money on board, like when you're getting off all the different ports and it's different currencies. Like I was in Asia, so I had a lot of different currencies, and I think a few people have seen in my vlogs that we had some trouble at ATMs. So a few questions have come in about like, how do you manage money on board? Have you got any tips or advice for that? Basically, I would say make sure you tell your bank that you are traveling before you leave the country, before you go to rehearsals, before you do anything. Tell your bank that you will be traveling. No bank in the world is going to be okay with someone buying a coffee in Vietnam, going then to Japan and having a nice bit of sushi in some restaurant. They're obviously going to think that's very suspicious and cancel or block your card. So make sure you do get in touch with your bank and let them know. There's different kind of like worldwide travel cards available, like Monzo, STA travel cards, I'm not sure, Revolut cards, you know what I mean, like those kind of cards. I personally now have one. I just have a Visa debit card, and I use that to like travel around. I let my bank know, yeah, and that's what I use traveling around. I didn't have any in like fancy cards, nothing like that. I literally just used that and it worked for me that way. We would get off, let's say for example, we would get off in Japan, okay, we knew that we were going back to Japan for the next like 7 cruises or something. We were like, grand, we're going to take out a lump sum of money, like not too much. You're only going to go to a cafe or whatever, like you're going to do things fairly cheap. If you were going to do something that was really expensive, you might take out a bit more money, or I always paid for other like expensive things with my card, but I would get maybe like 100 quid out, and then that would kind of do me every time I went there. I wouldn't have to pay transaction fees or have to be exchanging money. We had US dollars on board, but we actually didn't use money. We had a card, like a crew card basically, and we just topped that up every month. We would use that in crew bar, buying coffees and stuff like this, or if you went into passenger area you will be paying with your crew card, or you would use it if you went up to the duty-free shop, if you were buying any jewellery, any bags, any expensive sunglasses, like all of that sort of stuff. You would use your crew card. You wouldn't pay with a credit card, but you could top up your crew card with your credit card, if that makes sense. So that's kind of more or less what we did. Make sure when you go to an ATM that it is an ATM that is connected to a bank, in case it does swallow your card, because then you can obviously go into the bank and ask for them to remove it from the ATM instead of it just being like a hole in the wall. Make sure that it says on the ATM that you're going to that it accepts your card. A Visa, like when we were in other countries, like when we went to China, when we went to Japan, we had to be really careful that the ATMs would accept our cards. But I think like nowadays, because everyone travels so much, there's like most ATMs kind of accept most cards, blah blah blah, so it's usually not a problem actually. So how often could we get off the ship? Basically, you could get off the ship if you didn't have duty, if you were not IPM, in port manning, which meant that you had to stay on the ship and be there in case of any drills or any kind of like safety responses. You would be on duty for that reason, so you would have to stay on the ship even though you're at a port. So unless you had a duty, a show, or if you were on IPM, you could get off the ship. Now sometimes when we did dock for quite a long time at one of the ports, we would then have a general drill, so that was always kind of disappointing. So we would have to wait maybe 2 hours for the passengers to get on. We would have a general drill for like an hour, 2 hours, depending on the captain who is running the general drill and the safety officers as well. And then after that we would be running off the ship to go off the ship to do whatever we wanted to do that day, to then come back on board to do 2 or 3 shows. So it always depended, as the contract went on, because we were on a really long contract, it was at the discretion of our manager and our dance captain if we had to do a practice of the shows. So we didn't always have to do 3 shows, but occasionally we would have to do 3 shows. In the beginning of the contract we always did 3 shows. It was always a practice and then 2 shows for the passengers at night. It just was at the discretion of the management and at the request of the dance captain as well. Yeah, and your timetable as well, a few questions have come in about your timetable. It's pretty much the same as what I have vlogged. So you had your embarkation day, we had usually a day off, or if you were a magic show girl you had to do your magic show. Then we would have a port day, then we would have another day at sea, then it would start again kind of embarkation day, or we would have 2 port days, then we were at sea, and then it would start again embarkation day, another cruise. So it was really repetitive, and a few questions have come in as well about like keeping the shows exciting and all of that sort of stuff. I think like whenever you were feeling deflated or a bit defeated with the shows, or maybe it was getting a bit repetitive, you would always kind of have your friend there to pick each other up, to get each other excited, to push each other. I definitely am that person who, like, even though I know choreography inside out, I still want to be able to do it better. Like, I still want to push my ability, so I'd always kind of do that. I'd be like, I want to get lower, I want that to be so easy by the time this contract's over, like stuff like that. Like, you just find little things within the shows that you wanted to perfect. And I think then, like, when you would get corrections, or when you would actually be able to watch the show, because sometimes it was filmed for these kind of purposes, to watch the show and to see what you look like, maybe you think, I'm not happy with that, so then you kind of go again and reevaluate what way you're dancing and what way you are performing the show as well. The food on board, I've made a whole video on the food on board. I feel like I'm saying that for like every question. I've made a video, go watch the video. But I have made a video just so you can actually see it. The food on board is what it is. Like, if you have like very specific dietary needs, you can always buy food off the ship, keep it in your cabin, like as long as it's not like fresh meat or like fresh foods, like, you know, like breakfast bars or like whatever like you might need or might want, or like different cereals or stuff like that. You can bring stuff like that onto the ship. Snacks like crisps, not the healthiest, but you know what I mean. Like, you can buy like a nice fruit and nut mix or whatever it is. You can obviously buy that yourself, bring it on the ship if you want to be more particular and more exact with what you're eating or whatever your dietary needs are. But the food that is provided is to kind of suit all nationalities and all kind of dietary needs there. I mean, it's never going to be as good as your own cooking. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not a very picky eater, so I feel like I'm not the best person to ask about the food. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, some days it was good, I loved it, some days I didn't, but like, because maybe I just didn't like the foods that they made, the meals that they made. But at the end of the day, it's all included. You don't pay for food, you don't pay for accommodation. It's one of the perks. It does save you a lot of money eating on board. Yeah, and like as well, when you're getting off at some ports and you maybe don't have time to go and sit in a restaurant and wait to be waited on and all of this, you just kind of want to get off and get something done. It's obviously brilliant that you can go and eat for free on the ship, be ready to go off the ship, whatever. But it's like completely up to each individual person, and that's just something I think you'll figure out when you go on board, if you go on board and you decide to work on a cruise ship. But yeah, that's all for this video. I feel like if I keep answering questions and talking, this will be the longest video ever. So if you have liked this, do hit the like button, subscribe as it really supports my channel, and drop any questions I haven't answered in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to get in touch with you down there. Bye!